Hi, this is Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 113. Just stick with the tech thing. Recorded Sunday, November 10th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, and I'm the editor-in-chief over at the iTechGear.org. And joining us this week, we have the Dulcet Tones. They're back. They're here.
They were here last week.
This is true.
And the week before.
This is also true. Mr. Chris Gavula. Yes, sir.
You had me concerned with the date there for a moment.
Yeah,
I thought
well,
maybe I thought maybe the date was.
He wasn't sure if he was her.
I wasn't sure either. But you know,
it's
it is
okay.
what it is.
It's okay.
It's here. Former contributing editor at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, and of course, editor here at iTechGear.org.
We are.
Yes, we've also got brother Joe McLaughlin. You know, he's here too.
Yeah.
Hi, Joel.
Hello.
Yes, the former contributing writer at Gear Diary, and of course the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and Living in the Retro Arcade podcast, and I'm also editor here at iTechGear.org.
Did you post my stories yet?
And also joining us this week.
Oh my goodness. I
Another
understand the tone. The tone of the night is clear now. Thanks.
It is.
We may have to change the show title, but
Yeah.
The tone is whiny.
My goodness.
The password
Whiny,
is
whiny.
Who else is here, Chris? Who else is here?
the password is bite me.
And Dr. Larry McJunkin.
No, Mr. Larry.
Mr. Larry
Dr.
McJunkin,
Mister.
oh,
the
God.
former co-owner of WUGNET
Never live it
Publications.
down.
How are you, sir?
Well, right now, I'm actually one of the happiest campers on the planet. We accepted an offer on our house a week ago.
Yay.
The
Excellent.
inspection is done. Zero deficiencies. I mean, zero, not one thing.
You
So
can't-
everything's etched in stone. Nobody can back out. And we're out of here on January 8th officially, but we'll probably move before then.
Well, congratulations
Nice.
to you
Thank
and
you.
all
Thank
that.
you.
Nice. That is
Mhm.
very, very good. You know, but you know what is not
Ugh.
too great is what I'm
What's not
hearing
too
anyway. None too great. Yes, it's the battery life on iOS 18.1. Larry, what's going on with the battery life?
Okay, I can't give you examples for everybody, but I will give you mine. And number one,
Okay.
I did not see this coming. I have been
battery life's been pretty good.
I thought I was complaining about poor battery life since upgrading to iOS 18.1, but it turns out my battery life was just fine. In fact, it probably got a little bit better for a couple of days until I turned on Apple Intelligence.
Okay.
And then my battery life on my iPhone
And
16 Pro
You
went
just run
square
right down the
hell. So
right
I
down the
said, well,
tubes.
let's research this, make sure somebody else is not having a problem. And sure enough, firestorms are everywhere.
Well, there you
Reddit,
go.
Quora, everywhere you look, thousands of online whining sessions about this.
And-
And I hope that Apple is reading this because, I mean, I love Apple Intelligence, especially
Sure.
with Apple Mail and texting. In a few days I've used it, week or so, I have really become very dependent upon it. It's
Okay.
super.
so
But if they don't fix this, I mean, before on my iPhone 16 Pro at midnight is approximately when I put it to bed, it usually has 40 to 43%. It went down
Nice.
to 19%, which is kicking on the little red bar at
sure.
about 3 to 5 p.m. every day. And my use case doesn't vary. I do the
No.
very same.
Well,
So,
and as we said, Larry, and we said as we were talking, you and I were talking in the pre-show about this. This affects, iPhones 15 and 16. You're not going to see this in 14 or earlier models because we don't
True.
have Apple Intelligence. And
Correct.
so I've not noticed battery power problems because I'm still running a 14 Pro Max. So
It's just
yeah,
not
and
just Apple
I looked in
Intelligence.
settings during the pre-show too.
Mm.
There's really nothing you can turn off other than Siri itself.
Sure.
I mean, you could turn Siri off and effectively still get AI, but I don't
Yeah.
know what good
I
that
think
would
I
do.
think there's going to be more draw. But again, as I said also to you in the pre-show, we talked about that the fact that look, these are connected services. You're gonna draw more power. I
You
think the
are.
question really
You
becomes,
are.
We
can they through
expected it.
software, but can they make it through software a little more efficient? Can you cut the
Yeah.
distance in half or something, that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
thing?
I expected this, but I didn't expect it to just kill my phone in the middle of
Not
the
quite that,
afternoon.
yeah, not quite as bad as it is. Can we make it a little more efficient somehow? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I hope so.
Yeah, what I
I hope
read,
so
people who
too.
use their phones way more than I do
Yeah,
are running
yeah.
out of power by 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Gosh.
That's that's
I've
insane.
had I've had particular apps do that to me, but I've never seen a system service kill it like this is apparently killing it for some people. So hopefully they'll
I don't
improve it. I mean,
know.
it's a great set of features. I hope they improve it. I mean, I hope they improve the
Oh, I'm
efficiency of
sure
the
they
features.
will, but
Yeah, but who knows how long that'll take, right?
that's the key.
Very true. Very,
Apple
very true.
doesn't
Well,
typically work overnight on these things.
Yeah.
no, it does take them a while. But okay, so there's not a whole lot we can do right now other than to sort of
Nah,
let people know.
just
I
be
mean,
aware of it. If you want to turn it on, you're going to suffer battery life. If not,
and
turn it off if you can't deal with it.
yep. But if you turn off that feature, it does get better, right? You're
Oh
saying when
yeah,
you turn
yeah,
it off,
yeah.
everything's much
Hmm.
better.
Oh, I turned it back
Okay,
off and I have no problem.
so right now the workaround is turn off Apple Intelligence. That's
Yeah,
not a great not a
No,
great
no, because it kills the whole entire feature. I mean, you
right.
go without the thing, you know?
right. I
And
agree.
so,
Wow.
you get no benefit from all of Apple's marketing and hard work.
Hmm.
You get nothing from Apple Intelligence at all when it's off. So,
Well, there we go.
yeah. So, but I mean, they'll
Uh,
fix it, right? I mean, they'll
Oh,
optimize,
sure they
you
will.
know?
Oh, they'll make it better. I don't know that they can totally fix this
No,
because
because
it's going to go
it's
off
gonna
and search
be
for that stuff, and it has to use juice to do that.
well, it's the program's gonna be on in the background. It's gonna be doing things.
right.
It's gonna be listening
Well, a
and
lot of that
Exactly.
is on your chip. It's
yeah,
on that chip in that phone.
right.
So
That which is why it takes the extra power, right? I mean,
right, but it
it's
gets it a
learning
lot
you and
quicker
it's
to
keeping
you, a lot
everything
quicker
on.
than if it goes off the phone.
Right. It's keeping it all on the phone, and that's the so there is something to be said
Well,
for
that's
the
privacy
privacy.
related, and that's a good thing that it's
Yeah,
not going off the phone.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's going to cost you a little bit. You could
Sure.
go and get the same or better battery life with the newer chip if it were all off the phone, right?
Yeah.
But since it's more privacy centric, it's going to stay on the phone. So
I mean, I know everybody can't do this, but I'm at home most of the day. So for me, I just throw it on the charger here on the desk and every
sure.
couple minutes, and
And that's what
it's
I do
good.
too. That I have a charger next to when I'm working during the day. I
Mm.
plug it in. I never think much about
Yep.
it,
Yep.
but I know a lot of people do. I mean, what happens if you're traveling all day? What happens if
Yeah.
you're you work on the
Yeah, if
road
you're
when
a
you're
road
working on
warrior, you don't have an option.
exactly. You can throw it in the car and charge it, I suppose, when you're in the car, but come on. That's not a solution for everything. I get it.
No, but I think your point is if you find an opportunity
Yeah.
to put it on
Yeah.
the charger, put it on the charger,
And I'm one
right?
of those people that always, okay, I'm somewhere it can be charging now, so it's charging. It
Yeah.
just is. I tend to do that.
Well, yeah. I don't do that all the time, but I do find that uh, if I do that, I do have better results near the end of the day.
Me too. Me
I
too.
do have better results when I'm away from a charger
Well,
because I'll
the
have more
reason
power with me. But
and the reason I tend to do it is because my schedule is very uneven. I don't know
hmm
when I'm going to be away. So all of a sudden, now I thought I was going to be away an hour. I'm away 4 hours. I didn't think
right,
about that. So I tend to
right,
think, okay, when I'm charging, I just got to when I'm home or when I'm sitting in a desk, I
sure,
have to charge because I don't know what's going to happen down the rest of the day. And so
sure.
that uncertainty is what makes me always plug in all the time when I can.
And I get that, and I get
Yeah.
that.
So
I
we
mean,
all have different, what do we say, Larry? Use case, use case, use case.
Use case.
mhm. Very, very true, very
I always
true.
say we can change the name of the show any day. The use case show.
The use
Well,
case show.
Mhm.
That would not be far off the mark.
It would not, but no.
But what else is off? What else is not
You
off the
know what
mark?
On the
else
Chris?
is
mark.
out
What's
there?
on the mark?
Green bubbles
Green
are
bubbles.
now showing reactions in RCA messages. So
Yeah.
There you
Joel,
go.
Joel, what is up with all of this? I mean, we had green bubbles in chats before.
Right. But what this is now when an iPhone user sends an emoji reaction to somebody who's using an Android phone, that emoji reaction will show up. So you'll see like hearts or the
Oh, so
laughing
I
or
can
whatever.
thumbs up or heart or
Right.
Yep.
thumbs
A
down
conversation comment.
Yep.
a comment
Yep.
So the
or a
tap backs are working now.
right. The
Yep.
tap backs are now working the way that they're supposed to.
Yep. Supposedly, yes.
Aha.
Actually, I kind of like this. I have several friends with whom I chat and part of our family, and we have a lot of text all day long, a lot of love this, hate that, and now
Well,
they show up. It's kind of
well,
cool.
I will tell you, I noticed, I've been running, I ran 18.1 as a beta, and now I'm running 18.2 as a beta. I've noticed in the last few revisions, of course, when you're doing text with Android users, now in the text field where you're about to type, in fainter lettering, it will say SMS text, RCS text. It will say
Right.
Yep,
what it's
yep,
doing. But it's important to note for people that are doing like group chats, if you've been on a group chat for a long time, for years with somebody, like a text chat with people, you have to drop and start a new chain. Otherwise, it will
yep,
stay on SMS. It will never change. And
yep.
so, for those of you who might be saying, gee, my phone doesn't seem to support RCS, yeah, it probably does. You just need to start a new chat message sometimes to do that. So,
Have
I want to make
someone
it
else
clear.
take you off and then
Or have
put you
someone
back
take
Right.
you
on.
right, or take you off and put you back on, and then you'll see RCS. So it may not be it's you, it's not the phone.
Right.
Right.
Agree.
And in my case, like the group text I used to have, we don't do that anymore. We use
Right.
GroupMe,
You
which is
use a
mostly
different app. Right.
yep.
Right.
So it was GroupMe that we use for church messaging. Plus, we also have an app for my church for sending. You can with the church zone app, you can send messages that way too. Although nobody uses that, all use
Eh,
GroupMe.
gotcha.
But so that's what what we use. So and even before then, though, I still never had an issue. In fact, I do have one group text going with the guys I do the hike with, and I've never had an issue with those emojis showing up and all that, and
Sure.
a whole bunch of other things. It's like, we're just getting messages. There's some people that actually had problems getting messages from people who are in on Android, and that I've
Oh,
never had a
sure.
problem myself, but.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, good move canceling that, buddy.
Yeah, well,
Mhm.
what are you gonna do?
As in the US, we have this magical holiday called Thanksgiving, which is all about eating. Anyway,
It's all
uh,
about eating.
but it's not about green bubbles.
No,
It's not
No.
about CarPlay.
no. But,
Ugh.
you know, if it were, GM would really want you to think that you'd be better off without CarPlay.
Ugh.
GM
Yeah.
has its corporate butt in its
Well,
corporate,
they've
you
got
know
their
what,
corporate
head in
heads
its
up their
corporate
corporate
butt.
butt,
That's
you
what I
know.
meant. Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
you know what I
So,
think is very, very interesting. And Chris, I want you to expound on this whole thing just in just a minute. I want to start us off with a comment. I know Larry, you've said this. I know I've said this, but I just want to reiterate. Um, if the vehicle, this is a make or break
well,
on the purchase decision. If the car does not support CarPlay, I
mhm.
won't buy it.
But
Same.
I think we need to step back and let's explain what's happened here, because we do have a news story. We're talking about this. Basically, people have been complaining about this since GM said they were going to do this for a while
Mm-hmm.
now. And what's important, what's happened here is that it's come back and GM says, yes, yes, we know what you're saying, but we're still going to do this. So they basically have doubled down on this, is what they've done. And I
Right.
think that's what we're talking about here. They have doubled down and said, we're going to do this anyway.
Thank you,
Agree.
but no thank you.
And I think what we're saying is our
Agree.
comment back, Chris, is what you're just saying is we're all saying, and I think we all kind of agree that
Hmm.
this is very likely a deal breaker for us. We want
Mm-hmm.
this feature. Now, interestingly enough, I can tell you from being from the Detroit area and being, I know lots of people working in the car business here, and the reality is they've
Yep.
all complained upwards as well and said, you know, this is not what people want. Don't do this.
No.
This is so this is coming at General Motors from all angles. When they say
Yeah.
we're doubling down on this, it's not that they're not hearing the message. They're hearing it. And they've
They don't
chosen
care.
actively, they've actively chosen and
Right.
said, we understand how you feel, but we really feel that once you've seen this thing in action and you've worked with this, you'll like it. That's what they're kind of telling us. That's what
But
they
if
think they're
they're
telling us.
No,
but
they're
if
saying that you'll like it more.
You'll like it more.
You'll
And-
but
like
if
it
and-
their
more.
and-
Not that
if
you'll
their
like it.
loyal
There's a difference.
buyers decide to not buy another one, they won't have a chance to prove their theory.
They won't. And the thing that's interesting though is that, and so maybe you will, maybe you won't. And I want to make it clear that when they do this, they're not saying that your Apple or Android phone won't connect correctly to the system. It will still connect. It'll still Bluetooth. You'll still have audio. You'll still be able to talk and that kind of thing. What they're saying is you just won't have the Apple CarPlay experience or the Android Auto experience. You'll just have their Utilify experience, which is their back end for these things. And the big argument, guys, and you know this, we've talked about this in previous
They're not
conversations.
software people.
Well,
That's
but the
problem.
argument where they're coming apart, where this is all coming apart is Apple and Google want to expand and get car data and show it on your screen, and the car people say that's our data. We don't want to do that. We need to have control of that data, and we're going to present it to you instead. And that's where that's where the crux of this argument has come into. They don't want Apple or Google having, although Utilify, I believe, is Google based, by the way, interestingly enough.
It
That's
is.
what I read.
They
It
don't,
is.
and I think that generally alone might be a challenge for them. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes, because the first generation of it on the Blazer was not exactly ideal. It had a lot of problems so far. So, I'm not sure that that's going to be a good thing. And I will say, the other thing I'll say is, this was going to be primarily on their EVs, not their gas-based vehicles, what we call ICE vehicles. But
If it works,
but I
they'll
can tell you,
switch.
at least one EV, the Cadillac Lyriq, does still support the Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto. It does still do that. It's not forcing you down this path yet. Maybe it will in the next model year or the year after. I don't know. But right now,
and that's
it's
the
still
thing.
supporting
If
it.
you give me the option, I'm fine.
That's
okay?
what I've said too.
If you give me the option, I'm fine. I'll try it if I can opt out of it.
Even if you tell me I can support my CarPlay, but I can't have your car data as part of that, that's fine. That's been the true all along. I'm okay with
Thank
that.
you. Yeah. The thing that worries me, and Larry, this I want to expound a little. I want you to expound a little bit more. You've got a lot of experience with software development, software publishing, and so I want you to expound on this a little bit more. You had said earlier that one of the reasons why this is a problem is because GM is not a software developer; they're a car manufacturer.
Nor Toyota, nor
I should
anybody
make
else.
it clear that GM isn't developing it themselves. They use
No,
third
they're
parties to
not.
do this stuff.
I get that, but I just don't see how they can play in the space.
No, they're the product
be-
owner, so they're the ones
Right.
that are
Well,
spewing forth
and-
the requirements.
But they're, from their perspective, they're also the source data owner, and that's where the challenge comes in for them. That's why they feel they have to maintain control of their data.
Yeah, but I'm the car
No.
owner. I'm the one that plunked
I
down 70
understand.
grand for the car. And that's
I know, but that's kind of like you saying, well, I use a Windows computer, so you can't use Google for your server backend. That kind of thing. That's kind of what we're saying, and that's the challenge that they're running into. How far does their stuff come? How far does our stuff go in? That's where the fight is going to be, and that's where it's going to continue to be for a while, I think.
and that may well be true, but I think what will happen is they'll put this in place the way they want to do it, and the people are going to vote with their wallet.
think
their
so, too.
dollars.
If-
They will vote with their
If they
dollars.
You know
don't
what?
buy the cars, they're gonna dump the concept.
Well, I think so too.
bet
Now,
you.
now it maybe they're right. Maybe their experience is better. I don't know that for sure at this point. But what I do know is, whether their experience is a little better or not. If nobody else is doing this, if all of their competitors are not forcing this down your throat, guess what's going to happen? Because all your options, the competition will be there, the options will be there. But if everybody goes to their own systems,
Well, then it's different.
Then
you
it's
just
different.
changed the game.
right, you've just changed the game. And right now, nobody's saying that. Doesn't mean they're not doing it, but they're not saying it at this point. They're keeping their mouths shut about what they're going to do in the future. The other
Yeah.
companies are not really talking about what they're going to do.
Well,
So
no,
keep,
that's maybe not true because did you read what
well,
Toyota Motor Division, motor
well, we
companies?
also know what Porsche did too. Porsche allows Apple to pull car data, so they're in that game. So they've said something
Well,
too.
Toyota was asked, will you do something similar to Toyota and Lexus?
Okay,
And
Well,
they said,
Toyota
we
came
have,
from something, all right, and it was
right. They said,
absolutely
we have
horrible.
no plan at all to go away
well,
from Apple or Android.
but keep in mind, you have to keep in mind that may be true, but the thing is, Toyota has been years behind everybody else in this
They
space.
have.
And so as a result, I don't think they're ready, even if they wanted to, at this point, to try to make that kind of leap. They do
They're true.
not have the skill
If
set
you
to do
come
it.
from a Ford infotainment system into a Lexus, for heaven's sakes, you're coming down. You're going
Yeah.
backwards
And
in
quite
what
honestly,
it does.
the same thing's true with Honda. You're going backwards when you go into those Japanese cars. They're not caught up in this game. But what's interesting is if you look at, for example, what's coming out of Korea, like the Kias, they do tend
Oh,
to use newer stuff.
wow.
Very different. I don't know why the Japanese were hesitant to go down the electronics
If
path,
you look at the
but
a friend of mine has the Telluride, the high
mhm,
end. I guess it's the
understood.
Kia, the high end Kia,
It's
isn't
a
it?
Kia or Hyundai,
One of the
yeah,
two. Oh my God, that thing's like driving an airplane. I mean, it's
yeah.
got more crap in there, and it's still easy to use though. But
But that's
it's
the
really
point.
cool.
So I don't know. Just because Toyota says today they're not going there, I think
No,
it's
they
more
said they
because,
had no plans, no plans.
but I think that's mostly because they're behind. They've been behind the game for a long time, and until they
I
play
also
catch up,
think
they don't have
it's
anything to offer.
It could be
I
because
also
they
think
want
that
you to buy their car too. I mean,
well,
Mhm.
Yeah,
over and above that, I also think that they went down. They were hard pressed to jump onto the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay
they were
train.
one of the last ones to
They
do
were
it.
one of the
yeah.
last ones to do it, and
That's my
largely
point.
because they were dead set. This you're going to use our infotainment system. It's better. We know that people want, but we
Well,
don't care. We're going to provide you with the best possible experience.
but they didn't have an infotainment system. They really didn't.
They really didn't, but that was their
Well,
take. I know because my father worked for Toyota
Yeah,
corporate, all right,
yeah,
at least in Gulf States region, and that's I had him ask a couple of folks, all right,
yeah.
all right, and he passed me, and when I started asking questions, he
I
passed me their name, and I asked them questions, and they were like, no,
I think again, I would argue that the reason is they missed the boat and they didn't want to admit they missed the boat initially.
well,
So I think, it was all
this is
excuse
this. I'm
making.
on my fifth Lexus, and that goes back a lot of years. On the early couple of them, like you guys stated correctly, they did not have an infotainment system. They
Yeah,
depended on the best I could do was subscribe to iHeartRadio and listen to it on my
right,
car. That's it.
right,
yeah, I
And
get you.
I remember telling my sales guy here, I said, I'm over. I'm leaving. I'm going to somebody else, Ford, somebody, unless you guys take Apple. And they said,
Well,
wait, next year we're going to do it next year. And they did.
well,
They did.
and early on, and not just them, but everybody early on couldn't even get Bluetooth to hook to your phone to let
Oh, it
your
was
it
phone
wouldn't
be on
work
horrible.
right.
speakers. They couldn't
It
even
Awful.
get
wouldn't work
that
right.
stuff right. So, it took a long time, and I think they were just behind the game. And now that they've gotten to this place where they've got CarPlay and Android Auto, they're not ready to jump to anything else yet because they're not ready. They
Right.
don't
You
have
make a
the, I
good
think they're
point.
behind.
They don't have the wherewithal to change even if they wanted to right now.
They're very big, and even more so. It's funny because even more so than General Motors, they are much more static and bureaucratic than General Motors. To make a change at a Toyota or a Honda is a much bigger corporate administrative deal than it is
It
even at
is.
General Motors.
It
General
is.
Motors, General Motors looks like the thin, lithe, quickly moving company compared to a Toyota or a Honda,
Well,
and they're not.
part of
By
it
the way, they're not.
also
By the way,
is
guys.
another thing that we haven't talked about. Different cars are made for different demographics of people.
True.
I asked the sales guy that I've had for many years, I said, why can't Toyota, I mean, and Toyota Motor, why can't Lexus have this cool entertainment system? He said, because although you like your Lexus, we are catering to soccer moms.
Mhm.
I get
That's what
that,
he
but
said.
but that's more of an excuse because they don't really have an answer to the question
Oh,
because soccer
okay.
moms are
Yeah.
using these uh, soccer moms like CarPlay and Android Auto too.
Well,
They,
this was 3 or 4 years ago,
yeah,
too.
of course,
Five,
of
maybe.
course. So yeah, I think it's a thing. I think it's a thing, and I think they're behind the trend. And maybe that's good for them. Maybe that's because it certainly has helped them in the terms of the EV thing. They didn't jump full feet in. They stayed back on
More for
regular cars,
hybrids, right? More of the
and they're moving
hybrid
more
and
toward hybrids. And
Right.
yeah.
that's now the industry is starting to go, well, maybe we should go hybrids in the interim. Maybe we should do that for a while.
But
And the whole industry is
regardless,
starting to
if
shift. The point
General
is, maybe that's
Motors,
good that they do that. Is what I'm getting
re-
at.
regardless if GM is going to be brash about all this, they better be able to back it up with something
Well,
that
we're going to
really is
see.
good.
Well, the first generation was not. So let's see where they go with it. It was not.
Hmm.
It was actually kind of a loser on the Blazer. It really was a bad system. And they fixed. I think they have fixed and improved it quite a bit, but it had some huge problems out the door anyway when it first came out. So
Right.
we'll
Very
see.
true.
We'll see where they go.
Very true.
But but the point is they're doubling down, guys. They're not going to back down yet. So
No,
No,
here we are.
obviously not.
they won't. And I guess interestingly enough, if you want to, but we've been very, very critical about this
We
next
have.
topic.
Yes, we have.
The Apple Vision Pro has not been what I would consider to be successful.
Yeah.
And it at $3,500 and no go-to app, no killer app,
That's the
no
kill. That's the
must-have
thing
app
killing it. Yep.
for it. The system hasn't really found its sweet spot. All right.
No, definitely
And
not.
so apparently, the cheaper version of the Vision Pro is delayed until 2027 or
Seven.
so. And
Right.
then the Apple Vision Pro 2 is supposedly delayed until next fall.
Yeah.
We'll see. Chris, what's going on with this?
Well, like you just said, there's kind of two different things happening here. One is that originally it looked like they might try to come out with a cheaper version of the device, and that has now been pushed back, 2027 or later, possibly
Yeah.
now. And the funding has been pulled from it for now. Things like that is what we've heard, right?
Right.
And quite honestly, and I've said this before, I don't think cheaper is the problem here. I mean, I realize, don't get me wrong, 3,500 is expensive, but other high quality devices are in that price point. The problem is there's no freaking killer app. There's no compelling reason to buy it, forgetting the price. So I think even if you came up with a cheaper one, there's still no compelling reason to buy it. You still don't have, you still don't have the killer app or the reason to go there.
Right.
It
And
doesn't do anything better. So that's one thing. But
right.
the other
Your
track is
phone you can use for hours, your iPad you can use for hours, right? This you're only going to be able to use
So
for a few hours, couple hours, all
at a
right,
time.
before you've got to
Yeah.
take the doggone thing off your head.
Unless they can get it lighter or something. Now, if they could have come up with a lighter version, but maybe a version 2 is lighter. I don't know. But the
I
point
don't
is,
know.
so that's the second part of the story. The second part of the story is that it's sort of a reiteration of the fact that there is going to be a second generation of the product, not a cheaper necessarily, but a second generation, and it's due maybe late next year, or possibly early in the year following. So it's a little later than they were saying, but it's still sort of on the roadmap to happen. But again, that's fine. But again, I think, and everybody has said this, all the pundits have said this, and we've said this, unless you get that killer app. And again, it doesn't, we say killer app. It might just be a killer feature in the device. It might not be like, for example, they
The
just
compelling
released the software.
reason. Where's
Well, they just
the
released,
compelling draw?
they just released the ultra wide, the software that supports the ultra wide monitor within it. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are saying that has made it a lot better already. People are really excited about that. Okay, that's great. But if they can make the unit lighter so people can wear it for longer, it's a comfort factor, right?
Right.
And they can do maybe it's just features like the ultra wide. Maybe they need more features like that. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe, again, maybe you just need to do a better job making your use case out of it, your arguments for why to use it. I don't know. But I do think a couple of killer apps would be, if they could come up with one or two killer apps, that would be, I think they would start to sell even at that price. I think even at that price, they would sell. Not millions like we see with phones. I'm not going down that path.
No,
But
they
they
would
would
be a
sell in
more
numbers.
steady. It'd be a
It would be
steadier.
numbers that would sustain the device, enough numbers to sustain the device. Because people forget when the iPad first came out, they did not go flying off the shelves when they first came out.
No, it was considered to be like a jive phone. Something that Flavor Flav would wear.
It took a while for people to figure out.
chain.
Well, it took a while for the use case to show itself. It took a while for people to say, yeah, you know what? We actually kind of like this. And the
Right.
people would get people, some people would buy it and they'd like it, and everybody would go, what's that? And they go, oh, and you'd show them and they go, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Oh, and then all of a sudden everybody was making tablets like that,
Mhm.
right?
So,
Right.
Chris G, I want to ask you a question, and it's truly a question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
Spot.
you say a killer app. I did a little research on this.
Yeah.
They have 7 Vision Pro apps that are members of the elite $1 million plus club
Yeah.
annually.
That's not what I mean. Yeah. I get what
Okay,
you're saying.
because what are the I
No.
mean, we got some good
So when
apps.
let me take you way back in the Wayback Machine. Come on,
Okay.
Chris, we're going in the Wayback Machine.
Oh,
Come on.
good, Sherman. Let's
Yeah.
go. Come on.
Yeah.
We're going in the Wayback Machine. When PCs were still relatively new and
Mhm.
Windows came out, you couldn't give Windows away.
No.
Okay.
In fact, they tried.
bundled it. And what
They
was
tried.
the killer? But what happened? How did they get people to buy into Windows? It was called bundling it with Microsoft Office, which wasn't even
Mhm.
called Office at
Mhm.
the time. It was just Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And
Yeah.
initially it wasn't so you had to have some reason that made people want to use that interface.
Mhm.
Something that was unique to the interface that made you want to use it.
But
And
that
you had
whatever
to
that
have-
was
and you had
test
to
an
have-
And so
demographic.
I think
No.
the same thing is true with here. So if you just because you give me one of the current top apps in the Vision Pro doesn't mean that the Vision Pro is better at it than other mechanisms of using that app. You need something that's unique to the Vision Pro that makes
That
you
only
want
it
to
does
use.
better.
Yeah, that only it does better. That's what you need, and that's what I mean when I say killer app. Something that's specific to the because the hardware is great, but unless you have something specific to make that hardware do something that you care about. This
Right.
watching
Why have
movies
it?
is great, but it's
Why
not
have it?
enough. But it's not enough. You need something that makes it. Yeah, exactly. Why would I want to do this? As
Why would I
opposed to
spend? Why would I want to spend that amount of money
as
to
opposed
do
to picking
this
up.
if I don't care about it?
Well, when the interface is mostly the same as your iPad interface, and the apps are mostly your iPad type apps, why don't I just buy an iPad?
Right.
Why do I have to wear my iPad on my face and it hurts after a while?
Give me some
Mhm.
other reason. Now, this wide monitor thing, that's a big thing. I don't have to pay $1,000 or $2,000 for a big wide monitor. Okay, I can hook my computer to it, and okay, I can have this fake wide monitor. That's a good
But
thing.
I said
But
this
it's not a
once
killer app thing.
I said this once before, and I'll say it again, only because I just was down there. You go to the Apple store and go to any Apple store, but I went
Yeah,
to my
yeah.
Apple store. I happen to know the manager, several people down there.
Sure.
And you look at the Vision Pro test table, it's empty every day, all day long, empty. So I look at
Yeah.
it and I look at him and I went, like, what's the deal? And he just rolls his eyes like,
Yep. Now
nobody's
mine
coming.
wasn't. As I mentioned to you before too. The one at my store actually had people at it playing
Yep.
with it, but I wouldn't call it exactly a stampede.
Well, you
Right.
got to figure it out. I'm in Tennessee, you're in Detroit. So
Yeah, so I wouldn't
Mhm.
say it was a stampede either. But
right.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I mean, but again, the thing is, unless you have a reason for them to want to look at it, there's something they've heard about in the grapevine, something that they got talked about in the media, whatever it might be. So
Mhm.
there's got to be something that generates chatter about it. Otherwise, what's the point? Right. So again, to me, that's not the price. Everybody kept harping on the price, harping the price. That isn't the issue. It certainly isn't the biggest issue. It may be an
It
issue,
may
but it's
be
certainly not the
part of
biggest
it.
issue. But it's not the biggest issue because again, people will spend the money if there's a compelling reason to do so. We said that when the first iPhone came out. Nobody's going to spend this amount of money on a phone. You heard Microsoft say that. Nobody's going to spend that much money on a phone. Well, guess what, kids? They did. Why? Because the way it worked with you was very compelling to people, and everybody started to
Mhm.
mimic it. So, and the same thing was true with some of these other devices. But until this thing has some reason, some compelling reason to use it, price
Yeah,
is
you
going to
weren't
be
going to get
irrelevant.
folks to
I don't
do
care
it.
if you give me a cheaper one. Nobody's going to buy it unless there's a compelling reason. Price,
Exactly.
even if the price is half of what it is, nobody's going to do it until there's something
Right, because
compelling.
why would you spend even half of
Right.
the
Why
current
would you do
price
it?
for something that you're never going to use?
Right. Or you're going to use for a few minutes because of its novelty and then drop it. And that's what
Yeah.
happens with a lot of VR today. And I
Well-
specify that, but that's it.
And
Just give me a
even
reason.
the rabid Apple fans, like I think MKBHD say he
Yeah.
bought one and he doesn't use it.
Yep.
No,
Dust collector.
Yep.
you know,
Well,
Although I
we'll
don't know if I'd
see.
call him a rabid Apple fan, but I agree.
No, but
His statement is kind of like that. Yeah, these people. Again, I know we've talked a lot about this, and we keep talking a lot about it, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there about
Agree.
what the problem is. You know, is there a problem? I don't know. You know, if there is a problem, it'll stop selling. It'll be gone in a
well,
few years.
it's like, and you look at it. Okay, is there a reason for gamers to buy it? No,
No,
because
not at
there's
this
not that
point.
Not
many
yet,
games
not
on
yet,
it,
because there really doesn't have a gaming mode, and there
right?
and you know, I mean,
So,
the games that are out there are probably the ones that will run on iOS and iPad OS, and
well,
you know,
let's
Right,
they're okay, but
let's talk about that for just a second. So, if you look at something like the Meta,
right.
one of the biggest device things on the Quest device, the biggest gaming apps, is stuff like Beat Saber, things that
Yeah.
literally force you to have to like move in space, so to
yeah,
speak.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Beat Saber for the Apple for the Vision Pro?
Right.
Even if you released that app, that would be a big app to release for the Vision Pro. It really would. Just releasing it, then all of a sudden people would start to exercise with it or whatever. You know, they would start to do
sure.
some things with it. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist, and there's no equivalent that I know of. I could be wrong, guys. I'm not as advanced in the software space for the Vision Pro because I obviously don't have one. But
Hmm.
but
And the way things are going, you probably never will. But
yeah, well, the way things are, you know, the funny thing is, I will watch, and I have watched eBay to see because people get rid of theirs right away. So
sure,
it's like, and I've considered it. I've considered doing it. You can get it a lot cheaper than $3,500 when
sure.
we get it on eBay. But still, even that, it's like I just said. Yeah, even at half the price, you kind of go,
Eh,
do I need this? You know,
is the money
yeah.
really that is that
But
amount of money really burning a hole in my pocket?
and for our
Right.
audience, we're tech guys, so sometimes we'll buy it even if we don't need it because it's cool and it's a tech thing and we want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Mm-hmm.
done that. We've all done that. But the
Oh
point is,
yeah.
this is not enough to generate that for even for us. So even for us, we don't go down that path at this point. So
Nope.
yeah, give me something compelling. Give me some compelling reason that I would want to use this pretty regularly,
Well, maybe
and
one
I'll
day
go
we'll
there.
be able to report to everybody that
My
it's a commonplace
Yep,
device.
my two biggest apps that I run on a MetaQuest, and you guys know, again, I am not a Meta fan. If I could have it owned by anybody other than Meta, I would be much happier. But the
Right.
fact is, it's not. It is, and there's two apps that I use on it pretty much all the time. And Beat Saber is one. I use that. I do use that,
Hmm.
and I use an app called Wander, which basically takes Google Street View data and puts you like you're standing in the middle of the freaking street yourself. You can turn your headset and look around you without having to do the stupid
Hmm.
toggle arrows like you do in Street View.
Right.
You
Right.
just can literally look around you and you're like,
That's pretty cool too.
okay, it's and I'd love to see that app. And I've seen other people say this online. That would be a great app to have on the Vision Pro with its better processor because the
Take it to
MetaQuest
the
has a
Louvre.
crappy.
Take
Well,
it
the
to the
Meta
Sistine Chapel. Take it to the
Yep.
Colosseum.
And they have special they do
Hmm.
in there are special things where people took pictures in those places and you're literally walking around those
Hmm.
places almost like you're there. But and those are very compelling reasons to do it. And I've seen people online saying, "Gee, can we have this app? Can we have this app?" So if they released a couple of my favorite apps for video, I would even more consider jumping and getting one, even though it's
Hmm.
too expensive and it's more expensive than the Meta because it's a better device. I would consider doing it. But
Right.
until they do something like that, eh, eh,
Eh.
here we are.
There we go.
So I know
Anyway.
we've
Nah,
gone on this way too long.
I
Let's go on.
agree. I agree. It's going to take a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So let's have another topic. Let's go switch topics. What do you got for
well,
us?
I'm ready.
maybe
Segments.
we will. And you know, I got a better idea. Why don't we switch segments?
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Well,
move to our mobile Linux segment because there's some good stuff there, right?
you and your segmentation. You and your segmentation. Here we go.
Here we go. Okay, next segment. All right.
Next segment. Here we are.
All right. So apparently, Google search is officially a monopoly. No
Big
flash.
surprise
No
there.
flash. It's a monopoly. Larry?
Yeah.
You know, I know we've talked about this before, but this is why I like to have the show notes early, Chris, so I can go research. I found out something today that I
Did
did
you?
not know, and I'm going to bet money that none of you knew this. I'm
What's
going to
that?
do a very short background on this, then I'll do one quote.
Please.
Ooh,
I'm
hey,
going to bring you a bombshell.
Hey, guys,
Uh-huh.
Uncle Dr. Larry McJunkin's going to tell us a story. Story
Uncle
Here
time.
we
Dr.
go.
Mister, Uncle Dr. Mister Larry McJunkin.
Put
Thank you
on
very
your
much.
little hats. Okay, the court case that kicked this off, it goes way back to the pandemic. I mean, when it started, December 2020, even before the pandemic. And it's tried to gain momentum ever since. We
Okay.
started recently with a 9-week bench case trial, had over 3,500 exhibits to prove that Google was a monopoly, and absolutely damning evidence that reached into the petabytes. And here's what the court wrote. I quote, very short. After having carefully considered and weighing the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion that Google is a monopolist and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. It has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act. And before we start bantering this, here's what I found out, and I really doubt that very many people knew this. There's one important note here. The court was asked whether or not Google had illegally maintained a monopoly, both in its general search and experience, as well in its related textual advertising business. The court's response was, achieving a monopoly is not illegal,
Yes.
but using your market power to maintain that monopoly is illegal. And Google, you did this. I had
Yeah,
no idea that was
I read that as well, Larry. I did see that.
that was mind-blowing to me. So
Yeah.
in my mind now, if I believe our legal system, Google is a monopolist, period.
And
So
and
Google is
their
a monopoly,
and their
right?
statement is 277 pages long before the appendices.
Before those petabytes, right?
Before the
So
before
is
the
that's
supporting
Google's
data.
response, or is that the court's
That's the
pronouncement?
court's statement. The court's decision is 277 pages long, and that's before you hit all the appendices supporting
to
it.
support it?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So little to no doubt. Little to no doubt. Lots of evidence. Okay.
Again, they weren't, and then I think Larry's point is it's important to be clear. It isn't a violation of monopoly laws to
Do
so
it.
well that you become a monopoly. What's a violation is once you are in that position, if
you
do
use the
things to
leverage.
leverage
Use
your
your
market
power.
position
Use your power,
to
it
make
said.
other people keep you a monopoly, that's illegal. And that's what
That's
they're saying
illegal.
Google did.
Yeah.
That's the claim. And it's going to appeal. It's being appealed.
Well,
course.
sure,
Well, of
they'll
course it's going to
appeal
be
it.
appealed. All right.
Yeah, because
Now,
it's
right
silly
now,
for one. I
the
mean,
wannabe lawyers out there say it ain't going to happen. They're
Yeah.
not going to beat it.
Well, even if it is, what are you going to do at this point? How are you going to break it up in such a way that it's going to happen? I mean, you could argue that it should be, but how would you do that? How would you even begin
We're
to do
still
that?
suffering from the great AT&T breakup.
Oh,
Or-
Jesus, from
we are
1984. Holy
Yeah, we are
smokes.
still-
And that was
I mean,
a bad one, too.
And it was handled so
was.
badly
Yep.
on so many levels. Yeah. So what are you going to do? More of the same? Great.
Now, you want to completely screw up computing services for the next 50 or so years. Go ahead and handle it the same way. All right.
I think I think we've said that on this show before. It's not that we disagree that it is a monopoly. We're not disagreeing that they've done monopoly things and things that we think they shouldn't have done and leveraged their power and all that. We've all said that before, but that's not the point. The point is, okay, let's say you say, yes, we have to undo this. What are you gonna do? And is it gonna make it worse? Because we already know we've all lived through the AT&T breakup. We saw
a great
how
many
it
of
made
us have
things
lived
worse.
through the 1984
It did not
AT&T
fix
breakup.
things. It made it worse. It did not fix
it was
things.
horrible. It was horrible because you could not eat dinner.
No.
All right, you could not eat dinner as a family without somebody calling you and trying to sell you phone
Long
service.
distance service.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, that was true.
Well,
not only that,
and
but
they
for
would
services-
continue to call afterwards.
But the
Right.
services that stayed and continued, the pricing did not go down. The pricing went up as a
Yep.
result of breaking it up. It did not. The competition did not knock it down. It actually made it worse.
Yep.
So yeah. So the point is, I don't see any way that. I mean, I would love to see them have an actual remedy that was truly a remedy here, but and to
They're
share
not
the
gonna.
share the services and share the resources and make them more public than they are, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to happen, and anything that they do is going to make it worse.
Well,
I
Yeah.
really don't see them improving it.
here's the thing. Here's the thing, and this is what I'm hopeful. All right.
You're hopeful, are you?
I wouldn't say hopeful. Let me take that back. I'm hoping, all right,
Okay.
that somebody somewhere in
Wakes up.
a position of authority and power remembers what happened during the 1984
Yeah.
Never gonna
AT&T
happen.
monopoly
Not today.
breakup.
That will never happen.
All right. And does something different because it was truly painful as a consumer afterwards to have to deal with calling cards and
Yeah.
and codes that you had to dial in order to get the long distance service that you wanted or needed.
Well, that was to
And then
but
to
they
be
had to
billed
unwind the
correctly.
Well, they had to unwind the mechanics of it first. That took
And then
years
to be
do.
billed correctly
Yeah.
after that to make
Yeah.
certain. All right. I understand that they
Right.
had to unwind the mechanics and put everything,
And the administrative systems and all that kind of stuff and
right.
billing systems and everything else. I
I
get that. I get all
understand
that.
but the amount of grief that the United States, the people of the United States had to go through after that was absolutely
But the sad part,
outrageously unreasonable.
the sad part about all of this, I think, is it doesn't matter who does what. It doesn't matter if they get broken up. There's still going to be Google search. And I will
Yeah.
guarantee you, I don't care how many people try to use DuckDuckGo or whatever, 10 years from now, if you want the best search engine, you're going to go get Google. I'm sorry. I'm
I
not
use
on their
DuckDuckGo.
bandwagon
It's
at
Well,
all.
fine.
and that's what
It's fine,
my
but
parents never switched from away from AT&T
no.
for their long distance provider. And when they moved, they would just go to whatever the baby bell
Sure.
was for the area. Like in Ohio, it was
SBC
Ameritech for
Global
a
or
while, or
whoever.
SBC. And by the way, too, a lot of those baby bells have merged together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
but now
have.
they're all owned by Yahoo as far as their email stuff goes.
Right. So I mean, and that's the
Interesting.
thing. It's just like this is not going to make things better,
No, it won't. It won't.
and
It
Never,
it's
won't.
never, never.
Well,
and not to mention the fact, is it truly a monopoly now? I can go use Bing. I can go use Yahoo, but do I want to? I don't.
no,
But
it's
again,
because they
but
don't
that isn't
categorize the search results the same way.
that isn't the argument. That's the how they got to where they are. That isn't the how they stayed where they are. That's the argument, Joel.
Well, I don't.
It's not that
Yeah.
it's not that they didn't provide a good service. That isn't what anybody is saying. What they're saying is that once they were there, they used that to leverage to keep their
They made it
position. That's the
very
argument.
difficult for anybody else
Anybody
to
else to
compete
get into the
with them.
business. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's
the problem.
the
That's
negative.
why DuckDuckGo and Bing suck so bad, is because they've been compartmentalized, if you will, away from the
So
the
that's the
They
argument.
haven't been allowed to grow. They just
no,
haven't.
they have not.
So it's not just
So
about providing a lesser service. It's
No,
they
if
can't.
you don't
They
have
can't get
potential
there.
customers, you can't grow, and they don't.
very,
And they
very
don't.
true.
And that's the problem. And I get it, but again, I don't think but back to what we were saying earlier, I don't think that what I can see as possible remediation paths, I don't see any of those being useful, viable, good, better than what we have. I don't see any of that. Now, maybe they'll come up with something completely different that we haven't been talking about or thought of. That
Well,
could be, but I don't think that's
what are
going
they?
to
All right.
happen.
So what would they go ahead and
Well, that's the point. I
how
don't
would they
know.
take this apart?
Well,
Right.
the other hurdle.
Well, wait. They don't necessarily have to take it apart.
They
They
don't.
just have
That's correct.
they just have to find a way to level the playing field. It doesn't have to be by taking it apart.
That's true. That's true.
So I don't know
But
that's necessarily the only remediation.
The
That's what
other
I'm getting
hurdle
at.
is Google doesn't charge. For anybody else to be competitive, they're going to have a business model.
Well,
Think
that's
about
always
it.
but look at how Google's business model is, and the problem is, so what are you going to do? Separate that from the search? That maybe that's what they do. I don't know.
I don't know.
You'd
I
have
don't-
to. What you would have to do is you would have to separate, um, uh, Google Docs or Google applications or whatever the hell they're calling it now, into a separate thing, and let Google
Well,
Docs and
But I mean, you
Sheets
have
and
some good
whatever else be
companies
its own
out there
thing.
now
Have
that are
Android
trying.
be its own thing. Um,
Well, you'd have to separate Google
YouTube would be
advertising
its own thing.
But
I
you'd
mean,
have to separate advertising from search. And how do you do that? Because then search loses its business model.
Right.
Because that's
Right.
how it funds itself. You'd have to find another way to fund. So what do? Separate it and say, okay, now you're going to have to charge for search. What does that look like? Does that make it better? No, probably
No,
not.
because we're not going to pay.
But those are the remediations we're talking about here, guys. Possible remediations. We don't know what they're going to recommend. I don't think they know what they're going to recommend, because let's face it, we've talked about this before. Experts, they are not. These other folks are not. They're not. They don't understand.
No, they are not IT experts, and they're looking at potentially screwing up services that will affect how the entire world. It's not just limited to the United States this time.
It is.
It will affect the way the entire world works.
It's true.
So
at least the way they do search, anyway.
Yeah.
But I would also argue, and I don't want to spend too much time belaboring this either, but I would argue that, and we've talked about this before as well, the Google searches that I get today actually suck more than the ones I got a year ago.
This is true, because a lot of
search engine
it's
is
all
wrong.
it's all sponsored stuff up top,
Yeah.
above the fold.
So I have a lot of problems. So I'm not and I am on DuckDuckGo on a lot of devices, Larry, and it works fine for me.
I've tried it.
I know you've said that before.
I
What
want
I'm
to do
saying
it,
is
but I can't.
the Google search quality has been lowered in recent years to me, and DuckDuckGo has actually improved a little over
What
the
I
last
do is
couple
I
years.
just go down below
So-
the fold and start there.
Yeah,
And then
but to me, you shouldn't have to do that. Maybe that's the remediation. They take that away. I don't know.
That
What does
might
that
be a
look
good
like?
idea.
I don't know. I don't know I don't know what this looks like. I guess we'll see. We'll see where everybody goes with it, and then we'll complain about it when they do. How's that?
Okay.
No,
that
there's
sound fair?
something to do. You know what I've heard
Because
a
we are
lot.
those grumpy old men. We'll complain.
That's it.
We know how to
Mhm.
complain.
Yes, we do. Get off my lawn. All right. So
Get
you
off
know
my
what else
lawn.
I've heard that a lot of people
What have
are
you heard?
doing? I have heard that there's people returning Pixel
Ugh.
devices, and I have also
Eh.
heard that overheating is the number one reason for people to do that. So Joel,
Yeah,
Huh.
that's what the article's saying. I don't buy it.
Are a lot of people doing this, or just a few people? What's the story?
Well, I read some of this stuff in the article, mostly the comments in this article, and there's a
Okay.
lot of saying that, oh yeah, my phone does that all the time. I'm like, well, in my experience has been I have had the Pixel 6 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL. No problems whatsoever with the Tensor 1 or the Tensor G3 that's in my Pixel 9 Pro heating up, because I don't put my phone in stupid places. Like your dash and stuff like that.
stick it in the sun, it's going to get hot. All
Right. And
Of
every
course.
phone I've heard people complain about every phone about that.
I was gonna say,
including the iPhone.
We've talked about that on this show before. We've talked about iPhones getting hot under
Mhm.
certain circumstances.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so why are people returning this? What's the problem? I mean,
That's the number one reason. That's what
I gotcha.
I mean, it's a leaked leaked deck of slides from Google has revealed that some of the company's future plans for Tensor chipset, specifically around Tensor G6, and there's a clear focus on solving issues with heat and efficiency.
Well,
I gotcha.
and specifically overheating out for all of those folks that have returned Pixels. Overheating has been a very big problem for the Pixel
Right.
series, not just in terms of user satisfaction, but also because of returns, right? So, yeah.
Well, I always wonder when people say stuff like that. I always wonder if it's, well, it overheated and it stopped working, or shut down, or rebooted, or whatever, or is it just
Right.
it just gets
It's a
hot?
comfort
It's
limit.
unpleasant
It's a
because it's hot.
comfort limit.
Well,
The thing is too
right.
hot to carry. All
Okay.
right.
I never
Gotcha.
had that problem at
Yeah.
all on any of them. So, I mean, like, here's like the top comment on the article says, my 7 Pro overheats in the car when the sun hits it and the GPS is on.
Well, what did you think was going to happen?
I also tried to use it as a dash
what I'm
cam.
saying.
So it's sitting up on the dash in the
Yeah.
sunlight. And well, that's kind of your stupidity.
Well, I think
I
all
think-
of them, everything overheats if you're watching movies or something like that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
course.
that's the
I
thing.
If you're using the internet, it heats up. If you're uploading, downloading, upgrading the software, it's gonna heat up. That's all these devices. I don't care what it is.
Right.
You're using
Any
those
piece of
radios, those
electronics,
engines. Yeah.
any piece of electronics that you have that is doing a processor intensive activity. All right.
You want to
And
know a
it's sitting
fast way
in
of
the
doing
sun
it?
is going to have problems with heat.
Well, plug it in. That's one way to.
Well, that's one way, but it's still going to get hot and shut down.
And they get. I was gonna say, well, and they get hard. They get hot when you plug them in and charge them too, especially
Or
wireless
when you
charging,
put them
they
on
get
the
hot.
wireless charging,
I was just gonna say that they definitely get hot when you do it. I guess the only thing I would ask is the heating and the rates of heating and when they heat and don't heat. Is it really any different than things running the Snapdragon processor? And under which case you could make an argument that, gee, maybe the tensor needs some help. If that's the case, maybe if that's true, that may not be true at all. I don't want to say that it is, guys. It's not. I don't know. I have no evidence to say. But if the other one runs more efficiently, then maybe I can understand the complaint.
Well,
But
there is some work that's being done. Some of this has bubbled up, and it is Google does have plans to especially for the chips that'll end up becoming the tensor chips that will end up becoming the G5 and the G6. All right.
right.
Are looking at ways of improving the way that the processor handles expelling heat.
so let me ask you this. You guys may remember this. So is not the tensor, or wasn't it based on the Samsung Exynos chip?
No.
Wasn't it based on that? Is it still that way?
So.
Or no,
No.
it was. I think it was at one
I think
point.
it was
wasn't
originally, but I don't know that it's still carrying that.
And that was my
level of
question. Is it
architecture.
still doing that? Is it still based on that thing? Because that chip in itself doesn't rank well against. I
in
mean,
terms
I
of
know
thermals?
in terms of compared to the Qualcomms, but then Qualcomm will have a monopoly, and we'll be talking about their monopoly, I'm sure, if we keep this up. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, so what are the challenges that they really face? I mean, what's the efficiency problem? Is it just a matter of expelling the heat? Is it a matter of making the chip more efficient? I don't know what their challenges are with this. So probably
Well,
some of it all.
the internet just now tells me that no, that the tensor was its own chip. It started in
It's its own chip?
2021.
Awesome.
And that
Okay.
was it.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought it was based on one of these other chips, but
I never
that's
read
good.
that.
That's
but-
good to know. Okay. No, I thought I'd read it somewhere, but you know what? We're getting old. We're getting to be older, grumpy men, so it could be I missed that. So
Get that
I know it's
tensor
not
off
on
my
3
lawn.
nanometer
get that
yet.
tensor off my lawn. Yeah, get that
Right.
tensor off my lawn.
It's not on 3 nanometer yet, so I
That's
mean,
probably part of the challenge too.
Yeah.
Oh, the engineering process in it. Sure. Absolutely.
I get that.
All right.
That'll keep it less efficient. I get that, Okay. But it does a nice job at what it does. So let's not I don't understand all these complaints, because you're right, Joel. I've seen these kinds of complaints all along with the Pixels, and
I've seen them on
not
every phone.
but I've not
mean-
experienced it. I guess is what I'm saying is they've been very vocal about it. Pixel users have been pretty vocal about this, and I haven't seen it myself in any Pixel phone I've handled. They've been
Nope,
fine.
Me either. Yep.
They've been fine.
I've had it happen once with the Pixel 6 Pro. All right. But not with the 7 Pro.
Right.
All right.
And I have the
And
Fold,
that's
and
the one I had,
Fold
and
has
I
been
had
fine.
a little bit too. Yeah.
But nothing I would argue that was
No.
outside of the industry norms, I guess is what I would
Nope,
say.
not at all.
No.
Not that I've seen.
All I can tell you is if you're
Not to
doing
min-
anything processor intensive, any
Mhm.
gaming, any
Yep.
AI, any
And-
movie or picture processing again, the processor is going to work and it may heat up.
Right.
It may
Yep.
heat up if it's sitting in the sun and doing this stuff. All right.
Chris G, don't you have still have a 14 Pro Max?
I do, and it doesn't get unusually hot
Okay,
to me.
right. And here's my case. So I had the 14 Pro Max. Mine was a ball of fire every day, all day long.
And
Mhm.
mine is
And I
not.
never did anything with it. So different phone, different whatever. I don't know
But
why.
I do want to say that we, the team here at iTechGear.org, we
Oh
do
God, here it
not
comes.
we do
Mhm.
not minimize. We do not want to minimize any negative experiences that anybody has had with these devices. We're just
Real
sharing
bad
our
anybody.
we're sharing our experiences or lack of
That's right.
experiences
Right.
with some of these
Right.
things. So we're
true.
not trying to
No.
we're not trying to say that
will,
you
we
can't
will
experience
tell it
this.
as
As I
it
just
is.
said, my Apple phone got really hot.
Yeah,
And I
we are not-
remember you actually having
Yeah.
a really big fit over it. It's the one reason
did.
why you
I went-
ended up moving to a Google Pixel 6 Pro
That's
for a
true.
And,
That's
and
right.
we are,
Right.
but we are not trying to minimize anybody's experiences if they're actually
Right.
having negative
No,
experiences.
if you're having it,
I will
your
make it
experience
clear.
is, of
If
course,
you're having
real,
it, you're
but
having it.
But if
We
I
get
had
it.
to give anyone a tip, don't put any phone
Oh
on a
gosh.
mount on your windshield. Don't do it. You know, this is why you buy a car with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This is
True.
why. That way
Yeah.
you can put your phone where it
Well,
belongs.
I
it's
think
in your
the example
pocket,
you
it's in
gave,
your
Joe,
jacket,
but Joel, the
you
example you
know,
gave, the guy was trying to use it as a dash cam, so he kind of had to
Yeah.
put it in the window. I get that, but
Right. Buy a
on.
dash cam for that
but you
matter.
know
I
what?
mean,
When you leave the car, don't leave it don't leave it out on the dash. Don't leave it in the sun. I mean, come on.
oh no, you'll come back
Yeah.
to a pretty much dead as well as potentially melted
Does
device.
anybody remember
Mhm.
the old days where we had melted audio cassettes and melted CDs
Yes.
in our cars?
Oh,
Does
yeah.
anybody remember that?
Yes.
Well,
What do you
my
think
favorite
happens
one of my favorite dumb things I've seen someone do in a car was y'all know I'm a ham radio operator. Someone took their mobile ham radio, mounted it in their car, when on either side of it, holding it in the spot it was, like in one of those little cubbies on the dash, was two pool noodles. I'm like, that is so dumb. I mean, you're
Oh,
blocking
jeez.
all the
Air
cooling on
flow.
the radio, and you're gonna kill
Ah,
it. I'm
no
Yeah.
like,
kidding. No
and people
kidding.
do dumb things. They just
They
don't think
do.
about
They do.
it's like, oh, I spilled water on my laptop. Now it doesn't work. I
Really?
should be able to.
That's
Yeah.
Why
I'm
amazing
doesn't
to
it
like,
me.
work? I don't
it's like,
Well,
understand.
Chris, you remember
yeah,
in the old days when we would call that a Pepsi syndrome? Remember
Yes.
that they would
yeah.
knock the Pepsi over on the computer?
And
Yes.
An
I'm
old
like,
sketch.
That's your
that's
computer
why
doing
you
coke.
don't drink.
Yes.
That's what, like, you don't drink. It's like when I worked in the computer, in a data center,
You
all
didn't bring
day.
food in ever.
You weren't
Not
allowed
not
to.
over by the servers, no.
You weren't allowed to.
Yeah,
You
in
weren't
my
allowed to most
case,
part.
we did have it. We did have our lunches and dinners over in a certain
So,
spot in the room, not by the servers, not by the
folks,
mainframe.
folks, take
Yeah,
all this with a grain of salt that we say
yeah,
about these devices, what other people say about these devices. Don't get too excited because a couple of posters on Reddit said something, you
yep,
know.
exactly.
Let's take it for what it is. Our experience has been really kind of broad, and we haven't experienced this with these devices, but again,
Multiple pixels.
you
So I
could,
mean,
and we've all had lots of different models, so
right.
Um, you know, speaking of different models, right?
Yeah.
are we
It's interesting. Huawei recently came out
they
with
did.
a
The Mate XT.
trifold phone. All right.
It's really a bifold but tri-screen. That's what's interesting.
Right.
You'll see as much comment about that as you will anything. So
Okay.
interesting.
All right. Well, three screens, right? Where you've
Three
got
screens.
two folds,
And a screen,
three
and
screens,
three
right?
screens. Yeah,
Apparently,
correct.
Samsung is considering coming out with a similar kind of model, right?
Huh. Okay.
And yes, this is from one of our most favorite sites on the internet,
Yes, it is.
right?
But still,
It's an interesting kind of thing. Joel, what is happening with the Samsung, what they're calling a trifold?
So, according to a patent published by the U.S. Patent Office, Samsung has been approved for a patent on a trifolding phone. They submitted the
Interesting.
patent for a trifolding phone back in 2021, got approved for submission and published, and it goes in line with the previous rumor that says just that Samsung could introduce a trifolding phone in 2025. Well, we
they
all
patented
know,
it back in 2021. Nice.
right?
Right. So they had an idea for this. And what's interesting is that this thing ends up being at about maybe 7 inches long, 7 to
Right.
9 inches long, right? Depending on the width of each fold.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting in how this whole thing works. You've got, you pull it out to its full, and you've got this nice tablet sort of
Yeah.
thing. The problem that I have with this though is that I think Huawei wanted almost $2,500 for this
Well,
particular
it
phone.
actually goes up higher than that even, but
You know,
when you throw the memory pluses at
so
it,
I'm
yes.
saying, and when you get the higher levels of storage, right? And the better cameras of the pro models and blah
Yeah.
blah blah, it goes up to over $3,000.
Right.
And
It's,
if this
but
is your
here's the
price,
thing.
this is going to be your primary computing device. I can say, okay, I can see investing that much money in that device, but
Well,
I don't know how. I don't know what the use case is for this device.
but here's
Yeah.
where it gets interesting. People are actually spending that money, and they are buying the Huawei's worldwide.
Yes.
They're buying them. They're actually
Well, not here.
selling them.
Not
And,
here.
Well, we
and
can't buy- well, we
let me
can't buy
tell
them
you
here.
this though too. And here's something to think about when you're thinking about a trifold phone. Is at least on a folding phone like the Pixel Folds and the other folding
Samsung
phones that are
Galaxy
out.
Folds and the
Right.
OnePlus Open, yes.
Yep.
At least on those, you have one screen that is an actual, honest to God,
Yes.
real screen. In this case, you do not.
So
It is
that's
true.
all that
and-
squishy
yeah.
plastic stuff.
And I wanted to bring that up because how do you protect that, right? I don't know how they
Yes.
protect that. I don't see. And if you make it out of a different material to protect it, then the panels don't look the same when you open them up. So
Correct.
how does that? How would that even work?
How does that? Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
So
So-
I don't know, and this is one of the things that really kind of bothered me about it is how do you protect that phone gets to be very thick, number one. So I don't know what
Well,
it's like
the
to
Huawei
carry
is
that
actually
device.
the Huawei is actually very thin. It's actually about the same thickness of a Galaxy Fold today.
Really?
Yes, that
Interesting.
that was one of the big to-dos. It's
Interesting. All right.
it's really almost the same thickness.
Still, my point was, what kind of case? How do you design
Yeah.
and implement a case for this? Right?
Mhm.
Look at what's packaged with the Huawei. You'll see they actually did do that. But it's not enough to protect that outer screen. No matter
no,
what you
it's
do,
not,
that
and
outer
that's what
screen is
concerns me. That's what
yeah,
concerns me.
it doesn't. That's the big thing. No matter what you do, no matter what case you put on it, I mean, what are you going to do? Put screen protectors on the outside? How much is that going to work for you? And then you've made that outside screen look different
Right.
than the inside screens, and what good does that do? But what's the use case for it, Chris? The use case is when that Huawei opens up, it opens up to bigger than a 9-inch screen. And so basically, it becomes like traditional iPad sized when you open it up.
Oy.
That's the use case. That's the use case. And when it closes down, it's about the size of a OnePlus Open. When it closes down to with the OnePlus
with
Open
the one
is
screen,
closed.
with just the one
Yeah.
screen available.
So, and add to that, the other piece to add to that that's interesting of all this is look what's just come out with Samsung on their Fold line. They just released the special edition in Korea, which
Right.
actually has wider screens, just like the OnePlus
Mhm.
Open.
Yeah.
So they've gone to the bigger, wider screen on their special edition, and they put a better camera on it, both of which people have gone, okay, I want this thing, and it sold out like in 10 minutes in Korea.
Right.
Mhm.
And in China, from what I understand, in China, the functionality is even quote unquote better than the one in
Yeah.
Korea for
Hmm.
that special edition from Samsung, which is really kind of blowing my mind because
But,
why
yeah.
wouldn't Samsung provide that for South Korea as opposed to China? I don't know. Because they're a
I
Korean
remember
company
saying,
as
but I
opposed to
remember
Chinese
saying this
company.
back at the beginning. We talked about this back when we first started talking about folding phones in general.
Yeah.
And like we said, well, we don't know people are going to buy these things because there's an additional kind of fragility to the whole mechanism, even when you have a good one.
Sure.
And guess what? And we always said that market might be a niche market, but look what's happened. It's actually grown. The folding market has actually grown, and some people have been, jumping ship to these things because they like these folding phones. So I think there's a market for these folding phones, and I can see why a trifold just kind of carries on the whole
Right.
mindset. If you want to sit on a plane and watch a movie, it's easier to do that even than it is on an iPad or a Surface tablet.
There's
easier
just
to do it on
several
this thing.
inhibitors out there like that crease that until they get
Well,
rid
but
of
again,
them.
what they say is that, and I think this is true. Having used these folding devices, Chris, maybe you agree with me as well. When you see it blank and turned off like that, obviously the creases, you see the folds. But once you turn it on and you're
I
watching a
believe it.
movie, you don't see it.
You don't see the crease. You
You don't
don't.
see it.
I believe that, but it
So
won't
that being the
change
case, no,
my
but
mind. Most
No,
people, yes.
it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. But the point is, the market still is growing, and
Right.
people are still
Yep.
buying them. And I think there is a market for this trifold
I would
if they
truly
can get it
love a
out.
little flip iPhone. I really would. I would probably jump right
See, and
on.
I have no use for a flip device. That's
I
meaningless
meant
to me.
a single fold, just
Oh,
a
single fold. I
single.
got you. I
Yeah,
got you. But
yeah.
other people do.
Like a
They them.
Samsung Fold. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
like the
Yeah.
Samsung or the flip,
I
Samsung,
would.
whatever,
I would.
snaps
I walked
together.
away from the Samsung mostly because I
I
didn't
mean,
like the narrowness of that outside screen. It drove me crazy.
Yeah, I
But
like
the
that.
but the narrow, see, I don't like that vertical
yeah,
flip, does me no good.
yeah.
I have
Hmm.
no I there's no value in it to me. I could carry it open and all the time it would be fine. So I
Yeah,
don't
see,
need it
the nice
flipped.
thing about this is
I
the
don't
nice
need it
thing
to fold down.
about the flip style is that it's
Pocketable.
easy to carry, it's
But
pocketable.
I pocket the Big Macs and I don't care. So to
See,
me that doesn't mean
Right,
anything to me.
right.
That all that would do is make my back pocket too thick, and I'll say forget that crap.
And
But
I wear cargo pants all the time
So
anyway,
yeah,
so it
there you
doesn't
go. But
matter.
the point is
Hmm.
that works for some folks. It works for a lot of
Yeah.
folks. It doesn't do anything for me. But these folds, what I was going to say with the Galaxy Fold, it was too narrow, and so I walked away from it for a wider device. I needed a wider screen, so when it opened, it would have more of a square aspect, and when it was
yeah.
narrow, I could actually use it because it's too narrow. The fold is too narrow. Even the new one is too narrow. But that special edition starts to get in that zone that
It's a
makes me
little
happy.
bit wider. It's more of a rectangle. Yeah.
Yeah, it
No, I
makes me
get you.
happier in that fold. So I'm thinking again, I'm thinking to me this trifold's just more of an expansion on the theme, right? To
I
me,
do agree with you that the world is going to eventually all warm up. We're all going to warm up to this, and
I think candy bar phones and those kind of single slab devices will always probably be the majority of the market. I really think that's the case, but
Hmm.
I do think this has gone from being a tiny fraction of a market to a bigger market than we think. And what's more important for the manufacturers is they get a bigger profit margin out of these things.
That is true.
So, when they sell one of these, they make more money than when they sell two of the other or something like
That's
that.
they're
true.
unique enough that they can charge a lot more for them, and people will pay
Correct.
it. They'll pay it.
And they do pay it. And that's what happens. And so I think that's what's going
I
to
mean, you're
keep
looking
happening.
basically at what, 1,700 and up
Yep.
for something like that?
Yep. You got it. You got it.
Mm.
That's twice
The
the,
cheapest,
You
the
know,
cheapest one I know right now that in terms of the North American market is the OnePlus Open,
it
which
is.
right now on sale you can get for what, $12.99 on
Twelve
sale
ninety nine on sale. It's
right
Hmm.
now.
normally it's the MSRP on it is 16.99,
Sixteen ninety nine.
but you
Yeah.
can get it for as little as
And
12
the
and on an average of around 14.
and the current Google Pixel 9 Fold, 9 Pro Fold is actually on sale right now as well. I think from 17.99 down to 14.99 right
Yeah.
now, something like that. So, the point is these things, Larry, the point is these things will be, in that $1,500 range roughly, give or take,
and the people who make them will keep them in that range as long as they can.
And we said, and remember, everybody said nobody will buy a phone in this price range. And guess what's happened?
Yep.
They're doing
People
it.
are buying phones in this price range,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and up to $2,000. They're spending up to $2,000 on phones.
which is
But we
Yeah.
have to remember, for many people, not just in this country but in the world, a phone
That's their
is your primary computing
your
device.
primary
It's it.
computing
It's what you've
device.
got.
Yeah, it's what you
So,
And
got.
if I had to let go of everything but one device, that would be the one I kept.
right.
Yeah.
So you can see why some people, especially outside the U.S. where they don't always have multiple devices, are buying folding phones, and why a trifold has some appeal. You can see
Yeah.
why, if that's their only computing device,
They
that
can
may
make
be
it a little
well.
tablet sort of if they want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
There
Yeah.
you go. So
All
here we
right,
go.
kids. Well, there you go. And hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and move us to our Windows segment, but I'm going to do that right after this brief message. Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTechGear Weekly is now in its 4th year of production, and Chris G, Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. You know, I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job, but with the IT market so tight right now, it's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. You know, it ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone 2. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTechGear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTechGear Weekly episode. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 113. Just stick with the tech thing. All right. So I want to go ahead and get us into our Windows segment because there's a couple of interesting things that are going on here and a couple of, hey, you need to knows. So apparently Microsoft just is learning its lesson about overcharging for its AI features, don't you think?
I do. I do.
Larry, what's going on?
But I would submit, do they care? The lesson,
Right.
the lesson they just learned is one that we have truly preached on this show for God knows how long, ever since AI reared its head.
Well,
And
we
that
are
is-
in our 4th season, so
Right. And that is that most consumers are absolutely not willing to pay very much for AI. So I would submit the reasoning for this is that consumers and users fall into 3 primary categories. And this is, you can't read this somewhere. This is just me. I think we have newbies who still don't know what AI really is. So they're likely to stay in that category and not pay for anything. Then you've got savvy users who understand AI, but they don't want it. They were happy with basic search, so they're not going to pay for it much. And then you have the users who absolutely love AI. They use it 24 hours a day, every day, and they can't live without it. But that last demographic also knows enough about AI to know they don't need to have it shoved down their throats or pay for it. They have either a free or a minimal paid AI account, and they use AI on their own. They don't need Copilot. They don't need Gemini. So the end result, Mr. Microsoft, is that you can do whatever you want with AI, but we, being in those 3 categories, are simply not going to pay very much for it. And I would argue the same thing for Apple or Google. So don't, if you're Apple, I may love what Apple's doing in AI, but if they start charging me to have Apple AI in my email and texting, I'll probably think twice.
Hmm.
Just saying.
Hmm.
So banter about.
Discuss amongst yourselves.
That's just my
Hi, Paul
humble
McClem.
opinion.
Um,
I just don't think people are going to pay a lot of money for it.
no, here's the thing, and this is I've been thinking this. I've been thinking that this particular subject is one that most folks, I don't know that they're going to completely understand it, because I don't necessarily know that they understand AI. All right.
Yeah, right.
Completely, right?
That was my group one.
And I don't think that they're going to be willing to pay extra, all right, for something
I don't know what they're paying for. Why
they don't understand how to use.
Well, and like I said, because they seem to back down on the one thing, but they buried it in the Office 365
Right.
Subscription increase. It's like, really? All you did was
Right.
hide it a little bit. Yeah, you swept the dirt under the rug is what you did, and you expected us not to look under the rug.
Right.
And I don't think people are willing to do that. I just don't think they are.
No, I agree.
I just don't see it happen. It's not enough for me to want to pay, $5, $10, $20 more a month for that subscription just to have
I agree.
AI thrown in. I just don't see it happening. I
think the people that create all the open office apps right now, the open source stuff, they're going to start getting a lot more business, I think.
Maybe I don't know if that's going to happen.
Maybe not a lot, but some.
But I do think because I think the reason I say that, Larry, isn't because I disagree that they've certainly improved their products and they certainly have compelling products. I think it's more about the people that are entrenched in the systems they're entrenched in are entrenched for other reasons.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And so I don't think they're going to move off of it.
But I wasn't entrenched. So,
but people are not. But I will say this much: if anything's going to drive people away, it's certainly going to be trying to bury crap that they don't want into the system. That's certainly going to not going to entice people.
You're not going to pull that wool over too many people's eyes.
No, you're not. You're not
through that.
No, you're not. Well, and you and I have talked about this before. I happen to like, as an alternative, for example, I like the Apple Office suite that they have. The problem they have is it's not available across platforms.
Yeah,
I want it. If it was on other platforms,
with the exception of Numbers. Numbers is not a great app. It doesn't compete with Excel, but
no, it doesn't.
Pages blows Word away.
I would be happy to go there if the apps existed on multiple platforms, but they don't.
And it doesn't. And it never will.
I wish Apple would expand its services to other platforms. If they would do that, then I think they would have more compelling solutions.
At least Google Docs works well with Microsoft.
Everywhere.
But not so
everywhere.
Apple.
Every platform, because it's all browser based, right?
Yeah, which is why I don't like it, because I don't like browser-based apps. But that's what happens.
That's okay.
That's why we have these things. But what's interesting, and Chris, sort of talking on the side about this is why I'll kind of roll into this. One of the interesting, on top of all of this that Microsoft is doing, they're making Copilot worse.
Right? Yeah.
So it's more of a cha-cha, isn't it? They take one step forward, and then they take two steps back, and then they take one step forward, and then they take two steps back.
And we're dancing.
Yeah.
And we're dancing. That's it, right?
Call it the money dance.
I look at this and go, how is this a good thing? I don't understand. So you're going to give me a less compelling product, and yet somehow I'm supposed to, when you have Microsoft internal people saying Copilot sucks, and it's getting worse ratings than its predecessor. This newest update is terrible from what most people are saying. It doesn't give as good results as OpenAI's, ChatGPT directly does. When it's all based on the same thing, which is really funny, but it gives a worse answer and makes people unhappy. And yet somehow we're supposed to want to spend $20 a month on this thing. How does that work?
It's not going to happen for me.
Explain to me how that works. I'm not getting that. And these things are just, Larry, this goes to something you said a while ago, and it's said more than one time, and I think it's true. It's almost like Microsoft is completely oblivious to what's going on out in the world and what the reaction to the things that
They're
they do
what?
are.
They're what?
Huh?
Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Completely what?
But you know what? You know what's even
Oblivious.
worse for me is I used to work in those hallowed halls. I really did. I mean, I wasn't an employee of Microsoft, but the company that I co-owned was a contract employee, and I spent months and months and months out there. So I got to learn and see the corporate culture. And back in the 90s and the early 2000s, literally that company cared what its users thought.
Well, I was going to
It
say,
really did. I
I
don't think they give
remember,
a damn anymore. I really
it's
don't.
funny. I remember, and Chris and I talked about this a long time ago, is that I liked when they still had stores, when the Surfaces first came
Yeah.
out,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you'd
Stores,
go in
real
there
stores.
and you actually felt like those people gave a crap whether you were happy
They
I
with the
think they
did.
product or
did.
not.
I think
They
they
did.
did.
It was very much an Apple Store type of experience in a lot of ways, in some ways better experience in
Better,
some ways.
better.
But the
It was
argument I
better
make,
because there wasn't anybody else in the
whether
store. It
anybody
needed
else there.
individualized
Right.
attention. But I digress.
But the point I'm getting at is, and I remember even one place I lived, they didn't have a full store, but they had kind of a large kiosky kind of thing in the
Sure.
middle where they would sell the products and the phones and the bands and even the Surfaces at this kiosky kind of thing. It was big. But the point I'm getting at is that there was definitely a time where you would yeah, they were big, yeah, they were corporate, but they still kind of acted like they cared. And now it's like they don't even listen. They're
Mhm.
la 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 all the
Yep.
time as we're trying to
Yeah.
explain to them and help them understand where we think they're not doing as well as we would like as consumers. And it just seems like we get just
But one of the
they're just
buzzwords,
deaf.
one of the buzzwords back in that era was user feedback. It's simple two words,
Yeah.
but they really got that. Now they don't care. They just don't care.
Well, and I would argue that that's because their biggest business now is probably the server platform, the Azure platforms, the and that is not
Yeah.
consumer facing anymore. And so these other
Correct.
things are almost secondary to them. They don't, it isn't, they're not going to put the energy or the money or the time into them that they used to. But
Yeah.
what they forget, what they always seem to forget, and a lot of these companies forget, is these user-facing things. We say the same thing about car dealers.
How they
You
got there,
you
maybe.
you don't sell well, no, but in the car dealers they say, oh, we're not going to sell this vehicle anymore because we don't sell as many of them. But they're often that vehicle is a halo vehicle that brings people into the showroom to see other vehicles. Well, this is the same thing is true with Microsoft. These consumer products may not be the biggest part of their business anymore, but this is what brings their name into people's lives. And so I go to work. Oh, I need a new server product. Oh, wait a minute. Microsoft makes this too. Okay.
Sure.
I
Sure.
make
Sure.
this thing that I like, so they're going to make. Maybe I'll look at this other thing that they have to offer. Okay, but you don't
Sure.
have that if you
Well, yeah,
piss off people on the front end.
you're absolutely right. Go downtown tomorrow, stand on the street corner with a microphone, interview 20 people and say, "What is Azure?" Not
Yeah,
two, maybe one,
no,
but not two. Well, no, not one.
and I fall back to a number of years ago. Apple used to be big in education. They stopped
Yeah.
putting energy into education. The next thing you know, Google has taken over, not just based on price. I say Google, but I really mean
Hugely,
Chromebook devices.
hugely taken
They took
over.
over not just on price, but also on mindset because Apple wasn't putting mindset into education really anymore at that point.
Well, to be
Hmm.
fair, though, to be fair, they did a
But
deal with the devil and the government, and they
it's true.
put
It's true.
Chromebooks. They put Chromebooks out for
But
$78
but
a piece.
but
You
don't miss.
can't
Right.
get
But
Apple
but
product.
the broad point was Apple really wasn't putting the effort in at that point either, and
Yeah.
that
That's
probably
true.
added to the thing. And the point is when you lose the mindset there, it trickles down later on into the businesses, and so
There
you
is a
need
little
to
trickle down that goes on.
you
Yeah.
you you need to kind of understand that business A, if you own all of them, business A affects business B, affects business C. If you own them all, then you really don't want to lose your mindset and you don't want to lose your positive mindset. And that's what Microsoft's doing to a lot of us. They're angering us on the consumer front, and we're not going to be inclined. We're going to say, well, your customer support sucks. Why would I want you on my business?
Right. My business is more important to me than what my kids are doing for school because it enables me to provide for my family and therefore my kids.
But if your products in my school are sucking and I'm mad at your products in my school, I don't really want to talk to you about customer support because I don't think you can support me in my business either.
Right.
You know,
Why
so
would
they
I,
need to,
if you're screwing
right.
up what I'm doing at home and my kids are having problems with the simple things that they're doing just for school, why would I want to invite that into my business?
Exactly. So
But the other
that's
thing is, we're old enough that we went through these other eras, we'll call them, and
we
we
did.
still care enough that we say these things in hopes maybe somebody at Microsoft will hear. I doubt
Maybe
it.
somebody is
But you
listening.
know what? The average 25 to 35-year-old creator today doesn't care at all. If it
Well,
doesn't work,
they
he's going
not
to
only
the next
do they not
platform.
care, they are not aware.
Well, they're not aware, but I mean,
They're
if
not aware,
something
and so
from
they don't
Microsoft
care.
doesn't work, they'll go buy something else. That's it. Simple.
Yeah. But that's not even the worst thing they're doing right now, is it, Chris?
No, it's not. There's been a staple of products that Microsoft included for free when you installed Windows 10 and Windows 11, and those were Windows Mail, Windows Calendar, and Windows People. And like these were your PIM products or personal information management products, right? That allowed you to get an email and keep your calendar and whatnot, and have your contacts universally available throughout all of Windows. Um, Unfortunately, Microsoft has put a moratorium on these products, and they will stop working at the end of this year, which means December 31st. So you've got about a month and a half maybe left of being able to use these products. Now, what does Microsoft want you to use instead? Well, they want you to use the new Outlook because it will handle all three of these. All right. The new Outlook will get rid of these three different applications and stick it all into the one, which is very, very much like it kind of sort of looks like Windows Mail, but it handles all of them. I mean, I don't like
No, it kind of sort
Outlook
of
in and of
looks more
itself.
like Outlook, really.
Well, Outlook in and of itself, don't expect it to work like Outlook. When they first announced the new Outlook, or what they're calling the new Outlook, we had all said, "Ooh, maybe this will be like Outlook Express from the '90s," which was a really great email,
It was
pop
a good
email,
product.
and
It was IMAP too. It did
IMAP.
as well.
That's the
It
term
was
I was
good
looking
email.
for.
It was great
It
email.
was a great email product
And
because it did
clean.
both. It did both.
And clean.
Right. And it did it cleanly and efficiently and quickly. And with the adjunct and the implementation of Windows Metro and Windows 8, and that whole Windows tablet experience that actually sucks, and they gotten away from in Windows 8.1 into Windows 10, and now have completely abandoned in Windows 11, and it will be nowhere near any sort of tablet experience at all in Windows 12. The Windows Mail application took on a different look and a different UI and a different way of handling, and it was very, very much like a tablet-based application. And that's kind of sort of what you have with Windows Mail, Calendar, and People, but it's even more so they're doing the same thing with the new Outlook. And I don't like the UI. It's one of the reasons why I never used Windows Mail, Calendar, and People, right?
But there are certain people who use these older products when you take them away on December 31st, and if they don't like what they see as a replacement being shoved down their throats, they're going to resist change and change.
I'm with you.
They'll go somewhere else.
They'll go somewhere else is what they will do.
And Chris, you and I have talked about this before. You know, we view what I would call the business form of Outlook as a kind of different tool, and calendar integration is very important to us, and that's the one thing, the one compelling thing that keeps me using Outlook. You know, obviously because I have to use it for my business life.
Outlook, and yes, I mean I use Outlook as a email backup.
But the funny thing is, what I don't use Outlook for is my personal email.
Calendar.
And my personal
contacts.
calendar. My personal calendars and my contact are different. I mean, I use them in contacts. Yes, I get
contacts. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. It was not calendar, but contacts.
But I keep my corporate stuff from my personal stuff separate, and I don't use that tool for my personal stuff. And the reason is it's just not as good a tool for my personal stuff. It's too messy. It's too bloated.
It's too bloated and too big.
And that's what they're moving us toward with this new one. It's a very monolithic client, a very
Mhm.
bloated client. And what if you talk to people who are in corporate and moved from old business Outlook to new business Outlook, a
They're
bunch
not
of features,
happy.
the bunch features are missing. Things are broken. Things
They're
that
not
used to work are
happy.
broken now. So yeah, it's not a happy experience for anybody on either end of the equation. And I'm not
And what
thrilled with
really, really
stuff.
bothers me is this new Outlook. There's been in the upper right corner of classic Outlook, there's been this toggle switch that says try the new Outlook, and it's had an
Right.
on and an off.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And by the way, I've had it where I've turned that off and had it go back on me
Yes,
automatically, which
but
angers me.
my point is that's been there for years.
Yes, it
All right.
has.
That's been there for years. That has been so this whole concept of a new Outlook
Yes.
has been out there for a while, and we were all hopeful that they would debloat it, that we were all hopeful that they would go ahead and um make it faster, make it easier to use without all of the,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
switches and
this was
toggles
their
and
version
whatnot.
of cleaning it up like they did Word and Excel a year or two ago when they kind of new versions of Word, which I would argue didn't actually make it better in any of those
It
cases.
didn't, but
All they did was bury some stuff and automate some stuff that I would prefer they had not automated.
agreed.
But
And you
having
know
said
what?
that,
Apple did the
this
very
is
same thing with
yes, they did.
Pages and all of their
Yep,
They
apps in
did
yep,
iWork when the phone came out. They had to
when the
dumb it
phone
down,
came out.
and
Yep.
yep,
they
I
yep.
would
ruined it.
agree. I would totally agree with you. Now, interesting thing, and again, I think Larry, again, you and I have talked about this. I actually like the current Apple Mail client because it's very
Oh,
clean.
I love
It's
it.
a
Yes.
nice client. It's not too bloated. It
Mm.
doesn't go crazy on me.
Yep.
Um, but I don't have an equivalent on the Windows right now because
No.
they've taken away the things I would have used. So I don't have a good answer for
As we've
folks on
said,
Windows at this
Outlook
point.
Express is probably the as close as it
And
gets.
we can't get it anymore, right?
And you can't
So
even run it. You can't even run it.
no,
It won't run
won't run.
on more modern processors.
Not even in
They're too
compatibility
quote
mode.
unquote fast.
Not even in compatibility mode, huh?
Mm-mm.
Eh.
No, because that was
See,
a Windows 98, Windows 2000 sort of
it
feature.
was.
All
It
right,
was.
that app is over 20 years old. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
I miss that app.
I do. I do. And honestly, I mean, depending on what you really want is there a good alternative? Is the a
Yeah,
question
that's the question I've had.
that some folks are asking. And to be very, very honest, um, the answer is no.
No.
No, there
There
really
really
isn't, is
isn't.
there?
There
No, I'm
really
with you.
isn't. All right. I mean, you could use a web interface, but honestly, the web interface for the new version of Outlook, it sucks just as bad as the client
I
does.
totally agree.
All right.
Matter of fact, in some ways, the new client app looks like a web shell. It really looks almost like a web app.
Yeah.
It really
And I
does.
wouldn't I wouldn't doubt that it was a some form of
Intentional. I mean, they had
UWP.
to
Hmm.
do that.
Yeah. Some folks,
It's ca-
I don't use outlook.com.
Yeah,
I've had one Microsoft email address since 1995. Yes, it's still active. Yes, it's still used.
uh,
It was originally used as part of the original Microsoft MSN, Microsoft News
I
Service,
remember.
or all right, or
Yeah, back in the day.
back in the day when they were competing directly with AOL, right? Um,
Hmm.
and that particular address is still around, and it's what I use for my Microsoft account. All right,
Okay.
but and it's the major reason why in Windows 10 and Windows 11 I would get all of these wonderful Windows Calendar and people notifications that would come up on the computer screen because it set up mail services and calendar services for Windows Mail, Calendar, and People when you entered in your Microsoft account. Now, why it would do that and not allow directly allow me to do all that mess with Outlook or something else kind of annoys me. All right, but
somehow it looks to me like what Microsoft is trying ineffectively to do is in the programming world for apps themselves. If you're trying to make an app look the same on Windows, uh, any operating system,
yeah,
you're going to try and use Electron. That is the absolute best language to program with.
Yeah, I get it.
Also sucks because it's ugly.
Yeah.
It's just, and it just seems like they may be even trying to do that. I don't know if behind the scenes. I have no
I
idea.
don't know what they're doing. It's a
No,
mess.
very, very true. But what really, really bothers me about this whole thing is that there really isn't a good alternative out there. The new
No.
Outlook
Yeah.
is not a good alternative. You can use things if you do use outlook.com, it's not a great experience either, Chris, as you just said. And to be honest, between the four of us, I don't like there aren't any real alternatives out there. Somebody will say Thunderbird, not anymore. Again,
Yeah.
The new
1990s relic.
There.
Pegasus, it just doesn't.
1990s relic. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
Even the current flavor of it isn't that great.
Correct.
I'm with you.
Every app has its own problems.
it
They
does.
do.
It
They do.
does. The problem is that there isn't a decent without changing mail services, there isn't a decent alternative.
Yeah.
All right.
fair.
This is largely why a lot of people simply stay with Gmail. They simply do.
Yeah, but a lot of us hate Gmail for a variety of reasons. It's got
I
its
know
own
you do. I
drawbacks
get it.
too.
I get it. I'm just
I
saying.
use it and I use it. I say that as a user of it. I mean, I am a user of it and I dislike it for what it is in a lot of ways, but I don't see an alternative to getting off of it either. So,
Right.
same problem, different reasons.
Right.
Same
And
problem.
if there is an alternative out there, I don't know what it is. All right.
Nope.
I really,
Yeah.
really don't. Um,
I think a lot of people now though are they're not Chris Gavula, and they don't mind using email in a browser. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. You're right. A lot
No,
of
no,
people don't.
I actually like using email in a browser.
yeah.
I'll
I'm
Email I
I'm
use
I'm
all the
okay
time.
with it, but it's going to depend on the email system. All right. Seriously, it's going to depend on the email provider.
I just feel my email is actually safer in the cloud than it is on my machine, and that's opposite of what a lot of people think. And I get
Yeah,
that.
where I run into problems with it, Larry, and I run into the problems with the browser all the time is that when I want to search my email, which I actually have to do frequently, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of messages to sort through, it
Right.
is
Me
much
too.
slower me doing it on the cloud. It just is. I'm waiting for
I
results for
just maybe
it doesn't work well for me.
I know you're probably seeing that. I just haven't experienced yet
Yeah, I
that
get it.
yet.
I get that. I get
And
that.
it's the
But
same thing
that's
it's the
one
same
of
thing for spreadsheets or
yeah, it's one of
PowerPoints or
I was gonna say it's
whatever.
one of many things. Yeah.
If I put them in the cloud, I can get them from anywhere, any machine, anytime, any place. If I
Well,
put them only on my Mac, I can't do that.
But
Yeah.
and I would agree with you. But what I don't do is that
Trade-offs.
doesn't mean I have to use a web version of the app in order to
No,
access
no,
that
it
file.
doesn't. No.
That's where I'm going with it. I don't like the web apps
I
for
use
that.
Gmail, but I primarily use Apple Mail as the client to
Right.
get to my email service
I'm
called
with
Gmail.
you. I'm with you too. I don't use the browser to go to Gmail. I
Right.
never
Nor
do.
do
I
I.
use it. I use a hard client to go
Yep.
connect to that
Right.
data.
Yep.
The one that I use for Gmail is called Kiwi for Gmail.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say I divorce my application choice from my service provider choice, if you
Right.
will.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I'm with you.
No,
I'm with you on
I
that.
get that. And honestly, I stay away from the browser for Gmail simply because I don't want to be I want my email always to be open. And yes, I can do that with the browser, but at the same time, if for whatever reason I close the browser, especially on Windows, it closes down the email.
That's the
Well,
same. That is the biggest problem with Gmail. Everybody has that problem.
Well, it's not just
And
Gmail. It's going to be Yahoo Mail. It's going to be
it sucks.
Microsoft
It's awful.
Webmail or
well,
Outlook.com or
the
whatever.
other thing is by using a third party client like Apple Mail and getting my Gmail through there, I don't have the advertising bullshit
No.
that I get when I do the browser with Gmail.
And I'm not a real, to be honest, I'm really not a big fan of Apple Mail. I used to
I
be.
like the call. I like
God,
the no.
have you used it lately?
I was just gonna say, Larry, it got kind of cruddy for a while, but
Oh,
it was
it was
actually pretty
cruddy
good
for
in
a
its current
long time.
in its current incarnation. It's actually pretty good.
Not only that, I think it's super fast for
Yeah,
an app.
it's
It's
a nice
just
cleanup. I like it right now, but tomorrow I might not. But today I like it.
Right.
Anyway,
There
anyway,
we are. There we are,
anyway,
moving
this
folks.
is where
along.
we are. So that is the end of our Windows segment, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our tip of the week segment. And I want to remind everybody, hey, iTechGear.org was founded with the intent of making technology easy for everyone to understand. And so as a result of this, this team has dedicated most of their writing careers to making things simpler for folks. And we bring a tip of the week to everybody as part of the show. So if you've got questions or requests or suggestions, you can send them to tips@itechgear.org. And if we use your request, suggestion, or question, we'll give you your 15 minutes of glory and fame, and yay.
Oh, there you go.
But this week I've got another what I would consider to be a decent Linux tip.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
In many cases, you'll be working with the command line and you will type a command and it will not run correctly because it'll come back with an error message that says you need uh, um, elevated permissions, administrator level permissions for this. All right.
Mhm.
And so what you can do, all right, is use the double exclamation command. All right. And so what happens is, all right, so let's say you want to install a specific app. All right. If you want to do that, you have to have root privileges or administrator privileges in order to install the app. So you type, as an example, apt space install and then the app name. All right. And it'll come back with it could not open the lock file for that particular thing, unable to lock the administration directory, blah, 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 blah. Are you in root? Obviously, which is a very long thing for saying you don't have the correct level of permissions. So what you do is then you type the command sudo, which is short for super user do, sudo, space, and then the double bang or the 2 exclamation points, and you hit enter, and it will add the super user do or the administrative prompt to your last command at the beginning of your last command, and it will just go ahead and run for you. It'll ask you for your password at that point, et cetera, and do the whole thing that you were wanting it to do before. And it's a very quick way to go ahead and go, oops, let's repeat the last command, but let's add this to the front of it. All right. So the double bang or the double exclamation point is a way for you to reuse the previous command in your current command prompt. And there you go.
Nice.
There you go.
Most of us, though, don't find ourselves in that predicament because we're in the admin mode when we're at that computer with that operating system.
True enough.
That's true, but not too many folks are working with Linux or working with the Linux command terminal or command prompt. And when you do, though, it saves a lot of time. Saves a lot of time to allow you just to go ahead and just, oops, I forgot to add my super user to this. So sudo space bang bang or exclamation point, hit enter, and it runs the last command with that first bit in the front, and away you go. And it's really kind of convenient. So
okay.
That is our tip of the week.
Well, there we go.
Yes, I'm going to move us to our pick of the week segment here real quick. But before we get to that, and I know Joel is sitting on the giddy up for that because it's his week. All right. I just want to take a moment to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and actually use, and that we like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't any kind of paid advertisements or anything that we have any kind of an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, then our the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org indicates that we have to let you know that up front. These are simply things that we really believe in, and we want to bring to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we
like you.
That bad. We're getting better. Way to go, kids.
Yes.
Bravo.
I
Golf
do want
clap,
to say
golf clap.
before he tells us about his pick, you said he's getting on the giddy up for this, and earlier we were on the Wayback Machine. We are just traveling in this show.
Oh,
Yes, we are.
just
And
sitting on
that's
the giddy up.
actually my pick's real appropriate for that. Although
Good.
Awesome. What is it?
technically it's a specific pick, but it's also a service. Kind of subscribe to Bespoke Post, and a nice thing with
Ooh,
Bespoke Post. So basically, the way it works, it's about $49 a month,
mm-hmm.
and they will randomly, based on questions you answer, select you a box for you. And then if you don't say, "Hey, I want that box," or "I want a different box," they'll send it to you automatically. Okay.
Hmm.
This is actually one of the times where I kind of just stupidly went way past my own attention, and I forgot to choose, and they sent me this, which first I'm like, oh geez, I wouldn't. When I saw that, I'm like, I'd never pick that. But actually, when I got it, I was kind of glad I got it. So,
So
um,
what did you
What is
get?
that?
what I got here was what they call, and they have a catchy name for each one. This box is called the Settle Box. All right. So what's in the Settle Box are campsite tools to maximize comfort. So for example, uh, the box comes with a cup made by Primus. It's
Okay.
basically a steel cup, and it's about normal coffee cup size, kind of lightweight. Um, it comes with a pillow called by Climate called the Pillow X. In fact, if you guys can't see it on the show, but y'all can see it here. This is how big the pillow is when it's not blowed up. Comes with a
Okay.
little case
Huh.
here. Um, then it has a ferro rod from gee, who makes that ferro rod? Uh, Wolf and Grizzly fire set. So basically, it's got ferro rod plus a striker on a paracord, piece of paracord, and inside the paracord there's actually some dried jute tinder in there, so you could start a fire
Hmm.
with that whole thing there. And then there's a Human Gear makes a set of like a spoon and a fork called the Duo. So, and it's essentially a separate fork and a separate spoon, but the way they're designed is they will nest like when you're packed in your pack, and then when you're done, when they're not nested, you can pull them out and put the handles together. So one end's the fork, one end's the spoon. All these things are very handy for some of the things I'm going to be doing hopefully next spring once I get the non-needing of a CPAP taken care of. So I went
Okay.
and priced this out here. All that box was $49. All right. And I went and priced it out on Amazon. All those products happen to be available on Amazon, and they want $93 if you ordered it from Amazon, and you're getting it for $49. And that's probably the majority of the products that you're going to find on Bespoke Post. And then this month, I'm getting the Packaway, which is, and I'll put that in the chat there. It's a puffy, all right, made by a company called Ren. And the only thing I really not a huge fan of with Bespoke Post is a lot of their stuff they try to take advantage of small business, or they make the products themselves, and that's what I think this one is, because the only place I've been able to find Ren products has been on Bespoke Post. So, but this
Hmm.
is similar to I have a non-hooded Patagonia puffer that I currently use. I saw this in the selection of boxes I can get this month. I thought, why don't I go ahead and get this so that way I have one with a hood too. So we'll see if it stands up to my Patagonia. But this one's also packable too, so it'll fold into itself. So and it goes into a very small package. So I got the Arctic blue one, but the nice thing you can also get like other colors, like the colors in this one's Arctic blue, charcoal orange, peak orange they call it, and
Mm-hmm.
agave green. So,
Interesting.
but Other stuff I've gotten on Bespoke Post is I've gotten uh some of the there's some that they almost always have that you can always pick from, which are their classics, uh which are like the swivel, the off-duty nightcap. One I haven't gotten a lot of those. I did get Frontier, which comes with a little moleskin like notebook, a line of trade, which that a line of trade is another one of their in-house brands. A bottle opener, a Quaco Sport fountain pen, and an Opinel knife. That's actually how I started my Opinel connection. Was I got a green Opinel number 8, which is the knife that they included in this package. So, and it's not all camping and knives and manly. Well, most of it kind of started out in manly stuff, stuff for men. But they have since branched out. They do have boxes that are focused more towards women. If you are not into some of the stuff that men usually are. So, but in fact, Nomad's even got stuff on there too. Because I know Mr. Spera is a fan of Nomad and some
I
things.
am.
So, but they had their packing cubes. Unfortunately, they're sold out this month. But
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
also have things you don't have to get, like they sell other things that you can add to the boxes. So like for example, they have axes and uh,
Hmm.
grooming kits and things like that. So, but
Right. But
I
they've
like I like seeing what they come up with every month. Every month, a lot of times
right.
it's not I'm not interested. And the nice thing with Bespoke Post is you don't have to get something every month. So,
Correct. You can, the nice thing about, I mean, they've got some really interesting and nice gifts
mhm.
that are based on a specific sort of theme, right? They've
And,
usually got
and kind of a
something
specific
related to,
demographic. Yeah.
say again,
Right,
And a kind of a specific demographic they're
it is.
targeting. Because
right, it
I'll be
is
honest with you, I wasn't familiar with them before you started talking about them tonight.
So
So,
right.
they are an interesting, I used to get them for a while and I got some, interesting kind of things from them. In the long run for me, um not necessarily a service that's really meant for me specifically,
yeah.
but if you've got somebody who's really into outdoorsy kind of stuff,
Yep.
who's really into camping or hiking or whatever, there's some nice outerwear. They've got some nice clothing. They've got some nice boxes with, outdoorsy kind of themed sort of contents. And they're nice quality. I mean, it's
Yep.
some things that you would,
They
would
and
make a really good gift.
they
So
specialize in kind of collecting stuff from smaller brands as well,
yes,
rather
yeah,
than the big huge name brands.
right.
So that's their thing. That's kind of
So
their deal.
right.
Yep.
So there, the one of the things that I got that I really really like is their aged box, which is a whiskey flavoring sort of bottle
Ah, okay.
with a couple of glasses and a couple of smoke sticks, right?
Hmm.
These are pieces of wood that you would go ahead and drop into the bottle that you're going to use, and you decant your whiskey into it, and you let the whiskey sit, and it gets a nice sort of
Okay.
woodsy sort of smoked flavor to it, and then you've got the glasses that go with it.
Mhm.
So
I've gotten a concentrate box too in the past, which was a cold brew
yep,
coffee maker. In a unfortunately mine broke,
yeah, well,
so I had to
Whoops.
replace it. But I still have the little concrete tray and a concrete pencil
Oh,
cup sitting
sure.
on my desk, and they're really nice. And I wish they were a little bit bigger because they're kind of
Yeah.
not that
Okay.
big. Like depending on how much you carry in your pocket, that tray might be enough for you, might not be. But I
Hmm.
did like the brewer, but I when I broke it, you can buy that brewer elsewhere, but I ended up buying a different one.
But in
Mine
so
actually cracked in the fridge, believe it or
but
not.
in general, you've been pretty
Yeah.
happy with them, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Most
and
of their stuff
they've
I've
got
heard
some
of.
they've got
Yeah,
some good products, you know.
yeah.
So
awesome.
That one was a good product. It was more of where Joel kept it in the fridge.
There you go.
Oops.
Yeah, it was kept toward. I had it in the back, and then it froze,
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
and then it shattered. So
Yeah,
that's
Oops.
more me being stupid.
Ah,
But
well.
I've gotten
No.
like a now some of their boxes are ones you can probably repeat on. Like their supplies boxes have like things that would be nice to just get like every month or so, like
Okay.
coffee and things like that.
Sure.
But uh, so and
It's an interesting service.
yep, it's interesting. Probably another one I would of these kind of things I might check out at some point is BattleBox, which that's more outdoorsy kind of things,
Mhm.
I think,
Sure.
and survival gear and
Right.
stuff like that. So, and as I start to build up like my gear that I'm going to need for doing backpacking trips, I'm going to be looking more towards that kind of stuff. So,
Nice.
Got it. Nice.
Anyway, so that's your pick, and that's the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 113. Just stick with the tech thing. Recorded live Sunday, November 10th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central. For Mr. Chris Gavula, Brother Joe McLaughlin, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, I want to say we will see you all next time.